Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we have another very instructive game that was between Frederick Yates and Aron Nimzowitsch. This was played in the year 1926, and without further ado, the game began with e4, e6, d4, d5, going into a French defense. Knight c3, bishop to b4, and e takes d5. This is the exchange variation, which is notoriously known for being very drôche and very dull. Instead, the move e5 could be played. This is the main line of the win-aware variation. This line is extremely sharp and is the complete opposite of the exchange variation. But perhaps white didn't want all the complications that would arise from this opening. So instead he plays the exchange variation, and e takes d5 was played in response. Bishop to d3, knight e7, knight ge2, castles, and bishop to g4. Very interesting move, which provokes the move f3, which slightly weakens white's position. It weakens white's position because the pawn no longer controls the e3 square. Bishop h5, knight f4, bishop g6, knight c2, bishop d6, and the first error of the game, queen to e1. With this move, white hopes to bring the queen to the king side and start an attack. However, he overlooks black's powerful response. Instead, I believe after the moves knight takes g6, h takes g6, and rook to e1, white will have a slight advantage. But queen e1 was played, and black's next move is extremely powerful, like I said before. So I would like you to pause the video and see if you can find it. The move is c5. This is an extremely powerful move that hits the center. Yes, it does create an isolated queen's pawn, or IQP, for black, but white is not prepared to attack it, because the d file is blocked by this bishop, and the queen is on e1 instead of the square d1. The queen would be better placed on d1 because it would be directly looking at the pawn d5. With these reasons, you can't really call the IQP that will result from this position a weakness, because white can't attack it easily. Without this downside of an IQP, black gets to enjoy all the benefits of having an IQP. Those are extra space, central control, and piece activity. D takes c5 was played. Instead, if you try to hold on with c3, the problem is knight bc6 and queen b6 is coming, with immense pressure on the d4 pawn. So eventually, you're going to have to give it up. So d takes c5 was played, and bishop takes c5. Bishop is beautifully placed along this diagonal. King h1, knight bc6, bishop to d2, rook e8, knight takes g6, h takes g6, and f4, the second mistake of the game. So now, white continues with his optimistic kingside attacking plan, but the problem is he does not have enough central control to justify this decision. And also, there are two main downsides of the move f4. First things first, it blocks in this bishop on d2. The second thing is removes the only control white has from the square e4. So this is further weakening white's central control and hampering his own pieces. Instead, I believe bishop f4 was a little better, but I would still much rather play black in this position. So f4, and a great move by black, knight f5. Going for the square e3, that was weakened when white played f3 10 moves ago. c3, and now a great move by black, d4. This is the key break when you're playing with an IQP, because it opens up the center and activates all the pieces that you have in your position. And also, in a normal IQP position, the pawn would be weak. Obviously not in this case, the pawn's not weak at all, but in a normal position, the pawn would be weak, and when you play this move, it will often exchange off that weakness. So you basically have no weakness, and you get a bunch of piece activity for it. When the side playing with an IQP can safely get this break in, it's a sign that they have the advantage in the position. So c4 was played. This turns black's IQP into a strong passed pawn, but the alternative was worse. After c takes d4, the problem is knight c takes d4, and queen d1 just trying to get out of the pin. Knight takes e2, bishop takes e2, queen h4, threatening the move knight to g3, rook f3, and rook a d8. And I think white is on the verge of collapsing. c4 was played, queen b6, rook f3, and bishop to b4, a great move. So with this move, black wants to exchange off white's dark bishop, which is the key defender of e3. So once that bishop is exchanged off, black can safely land pieces on the e3 outpost. For those of you wondering, queen takes b2 is a serious error because of rook b1. And after queen takes a2, rook a1. And black is actually forced to go into a perpetual here. Bishop b4 is played instead, a much better move. a3, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, And another great move, a5, preventing white's counterplay. This move prevents the idea of b4, so white basically has no play in this position. Knight g1, another great move by Nimzowitsch, rook to e3. So now black has ideas of putting pressure on d3, which is the blockader of black's passed pawn. So once black can successfully get rid of this blockader, the d pawn can easily advance and will win the game for black. Queen f2, rook a8, taking full command of the e-file, rook to d1, and queen b3, putting more pressure against the blockader. Rook d2, knight to d6, c5, knight c4, white's forced to exchange off black's knight, and after queen takes c4, the blockader is gone, and now the d-pawn can feel free to advance. Rook c2, queen d5, rook c1, queen e4, and f5. I don't know why Yates played this. It just loses a pawn. Maybe he's desperate at this point. I don't know. Rook takes f3, knight takes f3, queen takes f5. Black just has an extra pawn now and will win this game really easily. b4, a takes b4, a takes b4, knight takes b4, queen takes d4, knight d3, rook c2, rook c8. The c5 pawn will fall, and when that falls, black will have an outside passed b pawn, which is even more deadly than the d pawn because it's more outside. Rook c3, knight takes c5, h4, black's 2 pawns up, the rest is pretty easy, I'm just going to zoom through the moves. b6, knight g5, rook f8, rook f3, queen d7, queen c4, knight to e6, rook d3, queen c8, queen b5, queen c1 check, king h2, queen f4 check, g3, queen f2 check, king h1, queen f1 check, king h2, knight c5, and after knight c5, white resigned. I hope you guys enjoyed today's instructive game. I hope you learned something new. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all next time. Goodbye.